OWC Eats, the web series where we find out more about where our food comes from. Welcome to the show. Today we're out in the eastern area of the watershed.
We're here at Riverland Ranch talking to Cody Spencer of Sweetgrass Bison.
We've had bison since 2018, grazing bison, selling bison meat since 2014. What we do is we reintroduce bison to native prairie landscapes in southern Alberta and graze them for the most nutrient-dense food and sell direct to consumer.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on here?
What we do here at Sweetgrass Bison at Riverland Ranch is reintroduce plains bison back onto the landscape, graze them on the native grasslands, and try to produce a really amazing product to sell to local consumers. We do that with a mind to the health of the soil and practice regenerative agriculture principles. We're trying to mimic the grazing patterns of the bison as they historically roamed across the prairies. Graze for a short period of time, move them away, allow the grass to grow back. The perennial grass plants to come up, capture more water, and store it back in the soil to help recharge aquifers and rivers and streams. We use a lot of fencing, watering systems to move animals around a property, because now properties that have boundaries, how do we move those animals across the landscape to achieve the goal of regenerating it? Fences, water, daily and monthly rotations with the bison depending on the seasons. The faster that the grass is growing, the quicker that we move the bison. In the wintertime, we move them much less. They stay up in the coulees and, find food up in the draws, generally thrive the way they used to.
So do you don't have to feed them hay that often?
Well, the goal is to reduce the amount of hay that we have to feed. Hay is really expensive. Anytime you have to put mechanical inputs, diesel fuel, and labor in between the animal and their feed, the more cost you have. We know that the bison survived here for thousands of years and that they can do a pretty good job of that. When they graze the native grasslands, they're healthier. The soil has not been manipulated. There's no chemicals on these native rangelands, and so the animals tend to be healthier and they can thrive in kind of a low-cost situation versus feeding a lot of hay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Very natural.
That's the goal.
So how has the drought we've been having this summer impacted your ranch?
This has been a pretty tough year. We got almost no moisture during the early growing season, and then met with those record temperatures in late July and early August, basically scorched off the grass before it could even start growing. And so, we've had to make a bunch of really tough decisions. For us, the health of the land is central to our business, and so we can't afford to compromise that. And so we've decided to get rid of most, if not all, of the bison from the property until, sometime next year, if the rains return and we get some more growth on the pastures. So that's a drastic decision that we've had to make as a result of, abnormal conditions. I think we can expect more of those conditions in the future, which is really troubling as somebody trying to get into agriculture and food production. Being faced with crazy heat spells, long periods of drought, you can't really do anything without water, and the water that you do have becomes all that much more scarce. So we have a little bit of feed left in the pastures that we can keep rotating our bison, minimize damage to the grasslands, and remove most of them in October during our annual roundup. And then the land can have a break and the people can have a break. And it's not all bad. People adapted to the conditions here on the dry prairies over thousands of years, and that manifested itself with the ecology, with the bison moved. If there was a drought, they didn't come back, and so did the people. So I think that in the future we need to look at that as an example and adapt accordingly.
Are you worried if we don't have a wet spring that you won't be able to get as many animals back?
Well, I would be more worried if we decided to keep animals and there was no rain in the spring. If there is no rain in the spring, that's okay, right? At least we're not met with other expenses and more damage to the land, which ultimately will render our business and our what we're doing on this land completely useless. So nobody wins at that point. The people, the animals, or the land. I think that's something critical for livestock producers, is to match the stocking rate of your animals on the land to the carrying capacity that it can support.
Do you know of anyone else around here that are undergoing like the same kind of drastic measures to deal with unpredictable weather?
We know people that are cattle producers that are looking to reduce their herd, and maybe they wouldn't be looking to get rid of all their animals. It just everybody's situation depends on their own context, and for us, we feel that by maybe taking a more drastic measure, we'll be better off in the long run. There are lots of people being forced to remove livestock. If somebody tries to purchase hay to get through this drought, odds are you're going to go bankrupt. It really is a life and death type situation in terms of the livestock business on the prairies right now.
So will you be able to buy more animals in the spring? Or?
Yeah, well, and that would be the idea. With a lot of people having to get rid of livestock, you can expect some lower prices this year, but we're pretty active with our marketing and trying to find different places across North America to market our bison, and the U.S. is a critical piece in that. There's always going to be bison that you can bring back on the landscape. This is part of a decision that we're looking to make. We don't foresee bison prices being too high to be able to buy back in, and so it'll be just fine. The foundation is that you need the grass to be able to graze. If you don't have that, you don't have a business in ranching.
A few years ago, we funded some riparian fencing along the Old Man River here. How's that been working out for you?
It's been working great. I think that was in 2018 that the WLP funded a riparian fence just behind Shannon's Shoulder along a 60-acre cottonwood forest along the Old Man River. Prior to that, it had been damaged and beat up through continuous grazing by cattle, and since that fence was installed, our bison haven't had access to that pasture. With that recovery period, the grass has been allowed to grow up over several years. The rains that we have had are able to be captured in the soil longer, and on a drought year like this, that is where we have by far our most grass on the property. And so as we look to get through these next few months with feed for our bison, that is the last ungrazed patch that we have on the ranch, which will prove to be critical.
Okay, so perhaps the most important thing that we're going to talk about today: why is the bison meat that we just ate right now so delicious?
Okay, so our outlook on this is that animals that are grazing on diverse plant communities, such as those found in native grasslands that haven't been plowed or altered with chemicals, they have a high nutrient density in the soil. They have a functioning soil community full of microbes and full of mycorrhizal fungi that are bringing minerals to the plants. And when an animal eats that plant, whether it be a bison, a cow, or a sheep, that's what their body is then made up of. So higher nutrient density minerals, generally higher omega-3s. To know that the meat is more nutrient dense, you need to test it. But you can tell just by looking at it if it's got a darker, richer color. And in terms of a grass-fed animal, if the fat is yellow versus a white, which is normally found in a grain-fed animal, you know that the animal has been fed a more nutrient-dense natural diet that it evolved with, because bison literally evolved over hundreds of thousands of years eating plants like these.
By practicing regenerative agriculture, not only are you making the land healthier, but you're also making a better final product.
Yeah, and that's the general idea, and now there's science that's starting to emerge to support that. But I think it's pretty intuitive with people. It's like, hey, that makes more sense than this other type of food production system. Real difference in this production system is this supports biodiversity and wildlife. This is a system that completely coexists with the native wildlife that's here, because bison are native to this landscape, right? And so, it's not a stretch to think that it's much better for the very few ecosystems that we have left in southern Alberta.
Thank you, Cody Spencer from Sweetgrass Bison, for sharing your story with us today and the delicious fresh bison meat. And we'll see you next time.